Warning: the following video may include educational content on the topics of Marvel Strike Force and ISO-8. Viewer discretion is advised. Alright, so today we are talking about the top 10 ISO classes that everybody gets wrong. As you can see on my screen, we are using the Mantis overlay, and Mantis is a program you can run over the top of an emulator if you play Marvel Strike Force on the PC, and it does a lot of really useful stuff. So quick note, I will have a link to my emulator of choice, which is Bluestacks, in the video description, and I will also have a link to download Mantis. It does a whole bunch of stuff. But as for what we're using it for this video, as you can see, it shows what percentage of players whose rosters have been uploaded to MSF.gg have chosen a certain ISO class for a character, and also what percentage of players have upgraded a given T4 for the character. So for example, what you can see with Shatterstar is that almost 8% of players are not running Shatterstar as a raider, which is kind of insane. But at least in this one, most people got it right. We're going to be talking about 10 that we feel most people got it wrong. Now I do want to say, if you have a character of the class that we're about to suggest is wrong, don't feel bad. I mess up all the time with ISO classes where someone will say, hey, I know you have it as this class, but I did the math and it actually looks like this one would be better. Am I crazy? And I'll look over it and go, actually, you're absolutely right. I'm going to change that right now. So as long as once you have the right information, you make the right decision, no worries. But that said, we're going to call out the 10 instances where we really feel like the player base missed the mark a bit. Coming in at number 10, Mordo. As you can see here, the most popular class for Mordo is Raider, and we disagree with that. We're going to go ahead and recommend Healer. Now, having said that, it's not so much that Healer is definitely hands down the optimal choice for Mordo. He's on this list because Raider is definitely not the best choice for Mordo. You can run him as a striker, you can run him as a skirmisher. We can say with certainty, though, that Raider is very suboptimal. The main reason is because he doesn't actually have a lot of opportunities to score crits. His ultimate, which is a somewhat long cooldown, I believe it's 5 energy, might be 6, and although he can gain ability energy, he doesn't get to use it very often, and that's his only AoE. So best case scenario, you're going to get a couple of crits off that. His special doesn't have the ability to crit at all, and you want to use his special as often as you possibly can. So you're going to take every opportunity to intentionally not be able to score any crits. And then his basic is just a single target attack that mainly applies debuff. So even if you do get a crit, it's barely adding any additional damage because Mordo's basic doesn't really hurt. It's for applying debuffs. So he really does not make good use of Raider. And so for that reason, he's number 10 on the list. Coming in at number 9, Crossbones. And yet again, as you can see, the most popular class for Crossbones among the players seems to be Raider. And for a lot of the same reasons as Mordo, there are plenty of other classes that Crossbones does well with. We recommend Fortifier, mainly so that when you press the Crossbones special, he might actually see his next turn. But we can say with certainty, Raider is suboptimal. And there's a few reasons for this. The first is his special, again, does not have an opportunity to crit. I guess technically he can score a crit on his counter attack that he gets from the special, but even then it won't apply a vulnerable, so it's a less valuable counter, and it's not like his counter attack with crit is going to do some crazy amount of damage. His ultimate can be used once every 6 turns, so you can't use it very often. So again, you're going to get like maybe 1 or 2 actual crits with his ult. And then his basic attack, again, even with a crit, doesn't do a lot of damage. He at least has a chance at a second attack on his basic a good amount of the time, but plenty of times he won't even get the bonus attack on the basic. But again, even when he does, he's not going to crit anywhere near often enough for the damage to matter, and the damage that it's actually adding is not very significant either. So we recommend him Fortifier so that he'll stick around and maybe even get to taunt an additional time and save someone. Coming in at number 8, Cyclops. As you can see, the majority of the player base here have Cyclops as a raider. Now I promise this entire list is not just going to be us pointing out which characters shouldn't be raider, but for a third time in a row on this list, the majority of the player base has a character as raider who just doesn't actually get a lot of opportunities to crit. The characters that make good raiders are characters that have multiple abilities that hit multiple targets. Ideally, someone with like a splash damage basic, or at least a multi-hit, like an Elsa basic or an Ebony Maw basic. But there's really not a strong reason to run Cyclops as a raider. I think his ult is like an 8 energy cooldown. It's something really tremendously big, so he doesn't get to use it very often. So he might get a couple of crits from pressing his ult, but then his special, even though it results in multiple people taking damage, he calls assists from other people to hit the other targets. So he just shoots the primary target once. And then same with his basic. It's just a single hit on a single target. So really not a lot of opportunities to crit. And so you're really not going to see the damage get expressed. So we recommend that you run Cyclops as a striker, and that way you will just always get a noticeable damage increase. That, and Cyclops already has a really, really nice damage stat, and his bonus attack will apply defense down. So it's just so much better. Coming in at number 7, Ebony Maw. So as you can see here, majority of the players in the game run Ebony Maw as a skirmisher, and while it's true that he's not a terrible skirmisher, there's one thing in particular that he's absolutely incredible at, and that's healer. And we recommend him as a healer. He hits all the hallmarks of what you're looking for in an amazing healer character. The two main factors being the size of his health pool. He has a really, really big health pool, and his speed. He's incredibly fast, and he often has immunity, so you can't even slow him down. He's going to take a lot of turns, and every time he takes a turn, he's going to give out not only a minor regen worth 5% of his giant health bar, he's also going to just outright flat heal someone for 5% of his max HP. So he just makes such an incredible healer, but it's a big mistake running him as a skirmisher when you can be getting the benefit of all of that healing. Not to mention that you tend to run him on the Black Order, and they do pretty well without needing a little bit of extra dispel from him. They've got Corvus and Proxima's assists helping each other dispel. You have the actual Thanos special that's removing a bunch of buffs, and he definitely doesn't need the focus. He's more than fine on focus, and unless you're using an incredibly small Ebony compared to the rest of the team, we definitely recommend him as healer. Coming in at number 6, Scream. As you can see here, the majority of the players like to run Scream as a striker, and there's a lot of reasons why this is actually rather suboptimal. So we'll start from the top. The first is that Scream makes an incredible raider. Everything Scream does is multi-hit or multi-target. The Scream ultimate is splash damage, the Scream special is a chain, and the Scream basic is a chain. So it's a ton of opportunities to score crits with so many targets frequently being hit. But another reason you really don't want to run Scream as striker, I am aware that Scream's ISO bonus attack is nice. It will remove a buff and apply a bleed. However, there's not one but 2 significantly better strikers on the symbiote team, arguably 3 better strikers. So you don't want Scream consuming vulnerables that can be used by other members of the team, even if you're going for a fully offensive setup. Anti-Venom is one of the best strikers in the game, and you want to leave as many vulnerables for him as you possibly can. But if you wanted yet another striker, you'd want Venom, because his basic is going to flip positive effects to negative effects, and that's considerably more devastating than just removing a positive effect and applying a bleed. And you could even make the case that if you wanted a third striker, Symbiote Spider-Man would at least apply a 2-turn defense down on every one of his abilities. So not only are there just better strikers to run on this team, but Scream is just one of the best potential raiders in the game. Coming in at number 5, X-23. So as you can see here, majority of players have X-23 as a striker. The fact that she's a damage dealer means she does okay as striker, but her ISO bonus attack doesn't actually come with anything extra other than an extra hit worth of damage. She can't gain the evade off the bonus attack or anything like that. There's no negative effect to apply, so it's just an extra hit for some damage. Here's the thing. If you're trying to maximize her damage, you very much want her as a raider. And this is for a couple reasons. The first is she does a lot of multi-hit. Anytime you can press her ult, you're going to, and depending on who gets killed and when, I've seen that ability hit 10 times in a row, which is a lot of opportunities for crit. And then she does a ton of piercing damage, which really lends itself to getting a crit. But arguably most importantly, you're almost always going to be running her on the X-Force team, and Domino is giving every member of the X-Force an additional 20% crit damage. So Raider already resulted in a bit more damage on average than Striker in most cases, when you add in a literal damage bonus for each and every crit, it's considerably more damage, and you definitely want to run her as a raider. Coming in at number 4, Graviton. As you can see yet again, the majority of the player base has gone with Striker on Graviton, and I suspect that the reason for this is because when Graviton uses his ult, sometimes maybe the damage catches people off guard, and he's definitely one of the higher damage dealing members of the AIM team. But this one, again, it's kind of crazy how many people have him as a striker compared to raider when he is just such an incredible raider. Right, so you have his special, which is a very low cooldown, which is always hitting a clump of people. You can hit 5 or 6 targets with his splash damage special. And then you have his basic attack, which, especially alongside other AIM members, you can pretty much always use that against enemies with a lot of debuffs. And you can have his basic be a multi-hit that's hitting 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times. That's so many opportunities to get crits, and that's going to result in way more damage than being a striker. Graviton is just, again, one of the best raiders in the game because he does so much multi-hit and splash damage. Coming in at number 3, Yo-Yo. As you can see here, the majority of the player base is running Yo-Yo as a skirmisher. And this is interesting because I do want to say there is one instance where skirmisher is better, and that's if you have a very small Yo-Yo and she doesn't have enough focus to be landing her offense downs. Then it makes sense to run her as skirmisher, but note that it literally only makes sense in that instance to run her as skirmisher if you have her at level 5 skirmisher where she's getting a boost in focus. If she's not level 5 skirmisher, then she doesn't really need to be skirmisher at all, because the main thing that she would actually take advantage of from being a skirmisher would be the focus. So again, if not level 5, definitely not skirmisher. But even then, if your Yo-Yo is even kind of normal power comparatively for the content that you're attempting, she'll have more than enough focus to land her offense down. Not only that, but if you run her as a raider, which is what we recommend, you're going to have so many more opportunities to apply so many more vulnerables. And that's great for Black Bolt because he'll get so many more bonus attacks. You want to put as many vulnerables on the field as you can for Black Bolt, who she's almost always being run in tandem with. So you have her ultimate, which is going to hit everyone on the field. And then you have her special, which is not only multi-hit, but it's also multi-target. So her special is like pretty much guaranteed to put one, if not more vulnerables on multiple targets all at once. And she can press that pretty often. So you're going to put way more vulnerables down as a raider. She'll do a little bit more damage. And again, unless she was level 5, she's not going to get any focus benefit from skirmisher anyway. And in most instances, she doesn't even need it. So for this one, we got to recommend her as a raider. You cannot get a triple tap by calling a striker. You can get a triple tap by being a striker calling a skirmisher. Didn't know? Now you know.
Okay, now cue the music and that star thing.
Coming in at number 2, Bishop. Now, I do want to say on this one, I made this mistake at first as well. Bishop does a good job of making use of most classes, and he does quite a bit of damage. He's definitely the majority of the damage for the Astonishing X-Men. So having him as striker and just increasing the natural amount of damage that he puts out may seem to make sense. However, the reason he's on this list is because we discovered only recently that he's actually hands down one of the best skirmishers in the game. And while it's true that you do sacrifice a little bit of damage by not running him as a striker, the utility that you gain from running him as a skirmisher is mind-blowing. And this is because he has 100% counterattack. In particular, when he's taunting, and then he always has a counterattack buff from his basic, he is just constantly counterattacking. And so here's how that ends up playing out. First and foremost, he's going to coat the entire enemy team with vulnerables. Anyone that hits him, he's going to fire back and hit them with a vulnerable. So he's making up for the damage that he doesn't have by making his entire team do 10% more damage to pretty much every target. But here's where it gets better. Once the initial round of vulnerables has been put down, and this can also be contributed to from teammates like Iceman as a raider, then he starts removing positive effects with every counterattack. So every time someone with some buffs attacks Bishop, he retaliates and takes some of their buffs away. So any characters that are trying to run any 2-turn, speed up, offense up, defense up, you name it, they hit Bishop, he takes some of their buffs. So he spends the entire match just dispel, 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 and that level of buff removal is worth so much more than the little bit of damage that he gets as a striker. So again, when I first got Bishop, I was initially recommending him as a striker. I did have the caveat that we were still trying to figure it out, but we figured it out, and he is way better as a skirmisher. That's what we recommend. Coming in at number 1, Swarm. As you can see here, the majority of players are running Swarm as a striker, and again, there's just really not a strong reason to run him as a striker when he's one of the best raiders in the game. So let's take a look at what he is getting as a striker. His bonus attack doesn't apply any negative effects or anything. It doesn't do any bleed. Someone made the case that because he can get a little bit of drain from the bonus attack, that it might be worth it for his sustain. But even a fully maxed Swarm on the Sinister Six is only going to heal 5% of his max for that bonus attack that he's going to consume a vulnerable for. So it's not even worth it. It's not a lot of healing at all, and he has plenty of sustain anyway. The only other reason I heard for why you might want to run him a striker is to make the bleeds on his ultimate do slightly more damage. But again, this is just insanity. He's going to do so much more damage as a raider, and every ability that he has is multi-target or multi-hit. He has the AoE on his ultimate, he has a triple hit on his special, and his basic is always going to bounce to 2 or 3 people. So you have so many opportunities to crit, so many opportunities to apply vulnerables for the team. He's just a textbook perfect candidate for a raider. So anyone who's running him striker is, I guess, under the impression that that's how you make him do more damage. They'll just make him do more damage as a raider. It's that simple. So that's why he took the number 1 spot on this list. All right, so there you have it, the top 10 ISO classes that everyone gets wrong. Admittedly, a bit of a catchy title, but a good amount of these are definite, just clear-cut decisions in terms of like how to make a character do more damage or how to take advantage of a unique interaction they have with ISO-8. But I do want to hear from you guys. If you think there are any that you see a lot of people doing wrong or you don't understand, leave those suggestions in the comments below, and who knows, maybe we missed one and we have to correct it as well. Otherwise though, thank you guys very much for checking out this video. Again, there's a link to Bluestacks and a link to the Mantis add-on in the video description. But otherwise, that is all I've got for you. So again, thank you very much for tuning in. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and photograph a platypus, and I will see you guys real soon. Until next time, peace!